parts. Yeah, we can begin.
Just quickly share my screen. Can I just check? Can you see my screen?
Yes, Michael.
Great. So just want to say thank you for everyone to be able to join. My name is Michael Huntsman, and I'm the Channel Enablement Manager for the UK at Jedox. So firstly, I'm really excited to be able to introduce you to Jedox, a bit of highlight of our solution and where we position ourselves in the EPM market. Then after about 5 minutes of that solution introduction, we can pass things on to my colleague, Colin, and he will take you over pretty much an overview demonstration of the Jedox application itself. So this meeting is meant to be informative and interactive, but if you have any questions, we'll save some time at the end because it's recorded. We have quite a bit of material to go through. So just to kind of kick this session off, I thought it best to start off with a Jedox recap. Pretty much say who we are and why are we relevant. So I'd just like to put forward 3 things: focus, scalability, and success. The first point is success, and we have the one unified solution, the one software suite. So we're not a conglomerate of different technologies or platforms, and our mission is all about helping enterprises outperform their competition by enabling them effectively to collaborate in an increasingly fast-moving world. The second point is scalability, and we have a very scalable solution with a pricing model based on the number of users, and we're doing this in over 140 countries with over 2,500 customers and a growing partner network. And finally, our solution is actually a SaaS offering that's hosted on Microsoft Azure. And the final point is success. So we actually are very successful. We have a growth rate of around about 60% currently, which is very impressive. And we have, out of those customers are very satisfied, and we have a customer satisfaction rate of around 96%. So it's not just, saying that. We have, leading global analysis, prove this through, regular recognition and rewards. So just kind of expand on that a little bit, on that success and our position with the analysis surveys and other merits. We have great traction with the likes of Gartner, Bark, Dresner, and we feel that we are already very well positioned today, but we want to be even better. So we have a lot of attention and focus internally on what actions we can take today and in the future to help us progress these even further, because we know that this is a really important aspect for both attracting new customers, but also pretty much retaining and keeping our existing ones very happy. So again, just a bit of a recap, what is EPM and where does that fit into data strategy? So you all, I'm sure, are very well aware, you've probably seen this pyramid diagram before, or seen something very similar. But I like the visualization because it's very simple, and it's a simple way to show customers the concept of a well-functioning system landscape and how these different pieces fit together. Now, of course, behind all of this, you need to have a very strong, data strategy with a data lake or a warehouse to support different parts of these and complex data storage. But to focus on the systems alone, here we have the 3 main layers. So we have, to start off with, a transactional layer at the bottom, analysis layer in between, and a strategic visionary goal setting layer on the very top, where we like to position EPM. It's pretty much the tip of the iceberg, but nevertheless just as critical as the other layers to be successful and to navigate enterprises through unknown waters. So all parts are equally important. And just to shift the focus kind of back to Jedox and what our core functionality is, Jedox is a very powerful in-memory OLAP database with lots of out-of-the-box features and functions, which makes it very useful for automating and creating efficiencies in almost any enterprise reporting process. So included in Jedox is our very own built ETL layer, which allows you to connect seamlessly to virtually any data source, and even providing two-way communication in many of these. So we're talking about write back capabilities. We've also developed a number of different third-party connectors to connect to third-party user interfaces, which I can elaborate a bit more on the next slide. But the benefits of all this are many, and I hope are quite clear. But just to kind of name a few, Jedox lets you consolidate data from multiple data sources into the one single source of truth. The users will be able to build business logic to transform and create meaningful insights from the data. Jedox solution allows its users also to add efficiency and modeling and all of this data in order to quickly produce scenario, what if planning, driver-based planning models, and then finally, kind of one of the main kind of value bringing aspects is that Jedox will really reduce the errors of the manual process. So moving away from manual spreadsheets, because we're automating a lot of that process. So as I mentioned before, Jedox works well with multiple user interfaces with a really strong data integration piece, and Jedox can access natively in a web browser or in Excel, or even on a mobile, and can be extended with special connectors to the likes of Power BI, Click, Salesforce, and others, which allow you to embed those Jedox reports directly. So business users can connect or continue to work comfortably in a BI solution of their choice, with the benefit of adding Jedox planning features, including write-back functionality, directly in the one and same user interface. So just my kind of final slide, and just to recap just before we go into the demonstration, I just thought it best to kind of illustrate, the global presence of Jedox customers, and the fact that we do work with many customers of different sizes. So we work with SME customers, but also enterprise. And you can see on the screen there, there's plenty of logos that are really well-known brands, likes of McDonald's, DVD, and Bosch. But we also work with smaller companies as well. So again, the solution itself is very flexible, and as every day goes by, we're adding new customers to our portfolio. So it's exciting times. So just thought I would just kind of introduce now Colm, and we can get on with the Jedox demonstration. I'll stop sharing, Colm.
That's great. Thanks, Michael. I'll do a quick check that you can see my screen okay, and obviously you can hear me.
Yep.
Brilliant. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, so yeah, so I'm going to take you. So my name is Colm Kennelly. I work in solution advisory for Jedox. So solution advisory is just another way of saying pre-sales or tech sales. So I'll be looking forward to taking you through the demonstration of the Jedox platform. And I think that is a key point. It isn't a point solution that does just a bit of budgeting and maybe a bit of reporting. It's a full environment that allows customers to simplify, automate, enhance lots of different processes. So it really is a platform, and our customers love the flexibility of the interface. They love the flexibility and the ability to integrate all of their kind of planning processes and functions on one environment. So in this demo, I'm kind of going to base it and focus it around trying to produce a profit and loss data at the end of a planning cycle. Now, a full profit and loss statement would require inputs from sales, production, purchasing, and that could be quite a long session, but we're only here for your lunchtime, I gather. So I'm going to focus on a few of those, but be aware that a lot of our customers do planning across all of their functions for the profit and loss. That gets extended out to balance sheet, cash flow planning, allocations. Some customers even doing their statutory and management financial consolidations using Jedox capabilities and Jedox models. Okay, so bear that in mind, but we're just going to focus on a subset of that. And you know, one of the processes that Jedox helps to simplify is strategic planning, which might happen before we do detailed annual budgeting, for example. So we make it easy for users to both visualize and modify relevant data. So for example, this example is showing us how we can choose different initiatives that we may want to include in different scenarios, such as best case, worst case. And you know, we can change the numbers if we had a lot more time. But if we have set the numbers, it's very easy for us to kind of select different initiatives which may or may not be included in our scenarios, just by kind of selecting them and then visually seeing the impact in visualizations and summary financial statements. Yeah, so Jedox, you know, kind of does all planning processes, including strategic. One of the things that are one of the great things about Jedox that our customers love is the flexibility of the forecasting options. And when we talk about forecasting, that we can help in, I think, lots of different ways. I would say there's kind of three main ways that we can help. So firstly, we can simplify the process of manually updating forecasts. We can use machine learning methods, which I'll show you in a second, and we also support rolling forecasts. Okay, so another point about Jedox is it's highly scalable, and we can capture pretty much you know, an unlimited number of planning versions, be they forecasts, be they scenarios, etc. And when it comes to forecasting, you know, we have this kind of really nice capability whereby users can do what we call version blending, so they can combine their actuals with maybe the remaining periods of forecast for any measure or any metric. In this case, we're just looking at units and unit prices to give us a new forecast at a high level, and then we could individually tweak periods or product or country values. Okay, so another way that we're seeing our customers that they're looking to enhance their forecasts with predictive capabilities based on machine learning and data science. And these capabilities they're fully integrated into the Jedox platform. So you can create both time series predictions and driver-based predictions directly in Jedox. So in this example, we want to forecast our revenue to the end of the year using historic data. And the Jedox AI assisted planning model it's very flexible and it's customizable. So if we knew our business very well and we knew what the best algorithm was to use for forecasting this type of data, we can tell Jedox to use that specific algorithm when it evaluates the data. Equally, we can tell it to evaluate all available algorithms, so as we can see on the bottom left here, and use the one with the highest accuracy. And based on this particular data set, the algorithm with the highest accuracy was exponential smoothing, and that's the one that it's used to generate the forecast. So we're seeing a lot of interest in AI capabilities. It's something that we're investing heavily in. We've already got customers using it today. It's not something that we're kind of saying, oh, it'll be great in 12 months' time when you can do this. We have real life customers using both time series predictions and driver-based analysis and predictions. And okay, so now that we've got our 3+9 forecast for our revenue, let's start to look at some of the more powerful budgeting and planning capabilities. So one thing that Jedox allows you to do is to seamlessly integrate the setting of targets and objectives, and kind of integrate that fully with the management and collection of bottom-up plans and forecasts. So again, I can easily move to a report which will allow me to set targets, and my initial target, I'll probably just base it on the most recent forecast, which we kind of established in a previous step. And if we're setting targets, part of this process, part of the rationale is going to be challenging the business to possibly grow in the coming year. You know, so I can grow the overall number. I might think that we may not experience any growth in one particular market or a range of markets, so I can hold those from being impacted by the overall change. And if I then apply, let's say, an increase of 5%, that increase is then going to be absorbed by other parts of the business. So very flexible, very easy to set operational goals and targets and cascade those down to individual countries, entities, cost centers, etc. Okay, now Jedox also has very powerful capabilities for managing workflows. Excuse me. So what it allows us to do, it allows us to manage unlimited planning cycles, which all can be managed in parallel on a single platform. So in this case, we're going to do a sales budget workflow. So I'm going to kick off the workflow for that particular process. Just while that's kind of kicking off, it's worth pointing out that, as I mentioned, we can have unlimited cycles, all managed in parallel, single platform. Each of these workflow cycles could have a different approval timetable, a different review process, a different set of inputs, a different set of reports and models which need to be completed, and they can all be visualized and managed in one place. And this is really powerful for organizations that have monthly rolling forecast cycles which involve budget holder input and review. And I think that the real value of the workflow capability is how it enables us to save huge amounts of time in all of these processes. You know, it can automate the creation of lots and lots of emails that get distributed to users to kind of informing them that their input is required. And within these emails, we can include links which will take users directly to the relevant input area within Jedox. So this link allows me as you know, a budget holder called Stephen to log on directly into Jedox. Yeah, so this takes me into the screen for this particular user who needs to do their kind of planning input. Excuse me. And yeah, so the interface kind of gives the end users a lot of capabilities for how they interact with capabilities. They may want to drill down on their data, for example, or they might be quite happy to input at a very high level. And this is kind of an example of almost like a zero-based budget, because there's nothing in there at the moment. But maybe I want to start building this up by, you know, for one particular group of products, my starting point will be the actual data for a previous year. And I picked a bad example, but it's very flexible. It's multi-dimensional, so a user can look at different customers potentially in the same area, but not having to go through individual files to get that information. So maybe for these particular products, I'm going to use last year plus 10%. And then for road bikes, I'm going to go for whatever the target that's been set for me for this particular product. And again, I think I can grow this maybe by 5%. So we've got this ability to make shortcut commands which are regularly used by users available as a drop-down, just to make them much more agile and efficient when they're doing their planning input. Yeah, and again, it's designed to be very flexible to allow users to kind of move between different views of the data. So if I wanted to see, I'm not particularly interested in the monthly detail, but I do want to see how my budget submission is actually comparing at a full year level to the target that's been allocated to me. And the numbers that I'm submitting at the moment will kind of exceed my target overall, maybe not for every product, but in terms of the mix and the share, I'm actually quite happy with that. Okay. The other key area of functionality that is available to the user is the workflow controls. So this is an area where users can sign off on their submissions, and Jedox will allow these users to add commentary as part of the review cycle. So when the user hits the proceed button for this workflow step, actually a number of important things happen. Okay, so the history of the submission is actually tracked, and kind of it's all stored, so we can see when the process was started. We can see when it was marked as all done by Stephen. Any Jedox reports which are looking at this data, as we'll see in a minute, they'll automatically reflect those changes. Emails get sent to interested parties to let them know that I'm finished. It's all generated automatically with the commentary included. And the submission is locked as well. So where I had gray cells that I could input to a moment ago, they've now been set to white. So it's locked from further changes. So I can't make any changes. And that just ensures that we're working with consistent, valid data. We don't have multiple versions of the data flying around that people are going to argue with after the submission process. So if I just shut down from the view as Stephen and come back to the administrator console view, as I mentioned, any reports in Jedox which are referencing that data, such as this initial P&L report that we started with, again, because it's a single unified platform, all the data changes made by budget holders are kind of reflected automatically in my aggregated P&L. I'm just going to stop for a second just to catch my breath and drink some water. I see we've lost a few people, so we don't have a massive audience. I think, Michael, you did say you were hoping for this to be interactive. We haven't had any questions yet, but I'm just wondering if anybody did have a question. Now might be a good time. Otherwise, I can carry on and show another part of the demo.
I don't have any questions.
Okay, thank you.
You can continue, Cole.
Okay, so as I said at the start, Jedox is all about a single platform for integrated unified planning. So if we want to, let's say we finished our sales process and we now want to move into actually working out the production constraints and measures that we're going to be working with, that's kind of the next step. So I'm just going to change the data so that we've got a lot more realistic looking data to work with in the next step of the demo. So let's imagine the volumes across the whole organization were the same as last year. And if those were my budget numbers, let's have a look and see what kind of challenges that would give me around my production options and what decisions I can take to remedy any particular problems. So moving to the production part of Jedox, if I move to an area called production lines, this is kind of showing me our 8 assembly lines and the utilization that would happen based on our current planning numbers. Now, clearly there's some problems here. 4 of my lines are in the red. They're well over their kind of utilization in terms of what we're asking them to produce to support our sales budget. So that's something that we kind of need to fix. And the next sequence, I'm just going to show you some kind of useful capabilities that Jedox provides to help us kind of try and fix these problems and turn some of these reds to green, so that the business can actually produce what it's hoping to sell next year. So assembly line 4 is quite high, so I'm just going to jump in. I'm going to jump in there and look at the details by month, and look at some of the production metrics that they're working to, and some of the demand numbers that they're being asked to fulfill. And really, they've got a problem for the full year and every month, which we kind of need to remedy. So one quick and easy way to fix this problem is to reallocate some of the production numbers to another assembly line. So I think if we were to maybe shift 29,000 units of this into assembly line 7, which currently we can see is only at 7% utilization. So clearly, if we can get them to take some of it, that actually works quite well. Both are now in the green because we're at 84, they're at kind of 57%. So that's that'll help me at the full year level. But still, I've got some individual periods where I'm still over capacity. Now, one way to fix this might be, so for example, period 6, some of the values we're looking to make there, maybe I could transfer those to January. We got spare capacity, so I'm just going to say 200 to 2022-01. And then, yeah, so I've now gone from red to orange. So that's brought me under capacity. And we can see that period 1 is still also under capacity. Okay, so that's a couple of ways to try and fix that problem. I've still got some issues towards the end of the year with periods 11 and 12. And I can look at really the production assumptions and metrics that are driving those. So in terms of what's available, the levers that I can work with, I can't really change the number of days per month. That's fixed. I don't really want to be changing the number of hours per shift because the employees won't be happy. But actually, if we can manage with 3 shifts for those 2 periods, that will fix my problem for both of those periods. Okay, so a range of kind of options available to me to fix the production issue. One other option, of course, would be to create a new assembly line. So in addition to the 8 that we already have, maybe what I could do is, if we were to set up a new assembly line in Brussels, for example, and that's going to be an assembly type line rather than varnishing or final examination. And in terms of the type of line that's going to be, I think I'm going to give that similar characteristics to assembly line 6, where we've also got a problem. So if that can produce similar type products to assembly line 6, then what I can do, having set up Brussels, is go to assembly line 6 and then allocate some of its demand. So let's allocate, I don't know, something like 30,000 to Brussels. Yep, and that works really well. So both of those are in the green. So again, a lot of flexibility, a lot of options to kind of fix some of the issues that are highlighted. You know, given the capacity constraints that we have with our manufacturing and our production, based on the current sales plan, we've had to take some decisions to try and rectify those. And again, Jedox makes it easy to do all of that in a single unified platform. Okay, so that's kind of the introduction to Jedox and the kind of the integrated platform that allows you to unify your departments, unify your functions into a single platform for planning, forecasting, and reporting. I want to spend a few minutes now talking about some of the AI capabilities, because this is something that we're getting asked about pretty much every sales call, every meeting that we do nowadays. And to kind of introduce the to introduce the AI capabilities, I'm just going to go to a different environment. And before I talk about AI-assisted planning, I just want to call out the Jedox marketplace, which Michael mentioned in his introduction. And the Jedox marketplace contains a whole range of Jedox models that have been built by Jedox and Jedox's business partners. And and these models are they're designed to do lots of things, either give you some best practice for a specific process, best practice in a specific industry, or best practice for a technical integration challenge that you might have with another technology, such as an ERP or a BI system. So it's quite an interesting range on here. Some of them, the more popular ones, I would say, would be things like financial consolidation, which is a Jedox model that companies can adopt and integrate that into their Jedox environment and feed the data from ERP systems, feed the budget data from other Jedox models. And equally, from the marketplace, we can also download and look at the AI assisted planning model, which, like I say, is a very hot topic at the moment. Now, when you download the AI assisted planning model to Jedox, this is what you get, exactly what you see on my screen here. So you get this start page, and then a description of the main areas that we see it being applied, and then a wizard to show you some sample data or to allow you to connect to your own data. So the main areas, as you can see, time series prediction, which is all about taking historic data and then projecting that forward based on machine learning algorithms and data science. Driver-based prediction is allowing you to say, well, based on the relationship between this particular metric and this outcome, there's a fairly weak or strong relationship, and if we can predict the input driver, then we can predict the outcome. And of course, those drivers could be internal metrics, or they could be external metrics such as weather data, GDP data for a market, etc. There's an area for data preparation, because the data that we use in AI projects is it's never perfect. So we need to clean it up a bit by doing getting rid of outliers. Sometimes we've got missing values, so we need to interpolate or extrapolate, and it contains functionality for all of those. And we can also do driver analysis, which is all about looking at drivers, as I mentioned, and just seeing really which drivers have the biggest impact on our outcomes. And our outcomes could be revenue, or it could be staff attrition. But we want to understand which ones are driving it. So if we can predict them, we can take action against what might happen. So that's what you get with the model. If you look at the time series prediction, then it takes you into this particular page here, where you can select either your own Jedox database, or you can start by using the demo data, which just gives you some working examples of what it's actually doing. And to show you what it is actually doing, if we had a finished example to show you. So in this particular scenario, we were looking to forecast our net revenue. And our forecast for net revenue 12 months ahead is looking like this. And we've got the prediction, and we've got confidence intervals. We've got a lower bound and an upper bound. And that forecast was generated using ARIMA. It used 11 models. ARIMA was the most accurate based on this particular data set that we supplied to the model. Yeah, so that's what the Jedox AI assisted model did for us. Let me show you how you did it. So how it did it. It did it by using the wizard to create a new setup and possibly a new scenario. So if I wanted to create one called Ufinity, for example, I can very quickly and easily create that scenario and then use that as the basis for my prediction. Now in Jedox, if we're going to do a time series prediction, then we need to have data which is identifiable as time data, we need to have a version dimension and identified measures that we're going to use for our prediction. And we've already got those, so we can move on to the next step. And again, the reason why it's asking is about time, version, and measure these are kind of really critical inputs into a time series prediction. So if I'm interested in, I think we've got relevant data from the beginning of 2017 up until the middle of 2021, for example. That's the data that I'm going to use. I'm going to use actual data. It doesn't have to be actual data, but typically it would be. And the results I create will be saved in a version called prediction. So I can clearly identify that separately from budgets and forecasts. And the measure I'm going to be forecasting is net revenue. Moving to the next step, it will give me some choices to make here. So how far ahead do I want to predict? 12 months is probably quite good. In terms of the prediction type, as I mentioned in my introduction, if I know which algorithm, which methodology is appropriate to my data set, I can choose that. But actually, I want Jedox to go and evaluate all of those algorithms and tell me which one is the most accurate based on the data set. So there you go. I've set up my scenario. I've done everything that I need to do. All I really need to do now is actually just kick this off and let Jedox go and generate the forecast for me after it's evaluated all of those 11 algorithms against the 54 months of data that we've provided to the model. So it's going to go away, and I think it takes about 10 or 15 seconds. Just let that run through, and then you can see the results of what we've done in Jedox. So if I show you this particular screen here, it's exactly what I showed you from the finished example. So Jedox is very much, we're trying to bring the power of predictive forecasting and make it available to users by using very simple to use wizards and interfaces on a single environment. So again, I've got my ARIMA methodology, which was the most accurate, my generated prediction based on the data. And again, as we saw a moment ago, it was the 54 months of data that we had chosen as the input to this particular scenario.
Colin,
yes.
Is there a minimum requirement in the amount of data input? So you put 54 months there. What's the minimum, or is it just that just make it less accurate?
I think, yeah, I mean, more is better. When it comes to time series predictions, more is better. I think if you've got less than 5 periods, it'll tell you it's not going to work. Yeah. So yeah, but I think more is always going to be better. But you don't have to have, in this case, 4.5 years. Okay. But clearly, 4.5 years has made this prediction pretty accurate. You can see the confidence intervals; they're very close to the prediction. Yeah.
Good. It's good to know. Thank you.
So that's a little bit on time series prediction. The other area which I think is really interesting is this driver analysis piece. So I want to talk a little bit about that. The last thing I'm going to show is a little piece on driver analysis. I'm also going to show a few other things which I think are kind of relevant and interesting. I'm going to show how Jedox has got very good Excel integration, but actually it makes it very simple to build a data model with Excel as a data source. So in this scenario, I want to do some driver analysis on a measure called sales. So let's say we know what we've sold since the beginning of 2018. We know what we spent on marketing promotions, and we know how much we spent on newspaper advertising. But let's imagine we also had data around the number of COVID cases, and we wanted to see, is that a driver? Does that impact on our sales? So we're combining external and internal data to do some analysis on an internal metric. So within Excel, I can hit this button called data-driven modeling. And it's going to look at my spreadsheet and say, okay, well, the first column is identifiable as time. The second column looks like a business dimension called region. and then the others are measures. Yeah. Now you'll see that, like all good Apple ads, some of the sequences have been shortened because I've kind of told it in the in the column. It knows to put them there. If I hadn't told them, I'd have had to manually move these things around, but I'm just saving us a little bit of time, but it's the same interface. So yeah, so Jedox is going to build me a model based on that spreadsheet when I hit the create button. And yeah, and that will give me something that I can start to, I can look at this data now, I can start to create reports off it. I can even enhance the model that it's created. So from the Excel interface, I can jump into Jedox Modeler and move to the DDM COVID database that it's just created. And the version dimension that created, I want to enhance that with a version called prediction. Yeah, and the reason for that is if I jump back into my AI assisted planning wizard and I start the wizard for driver analysis, and this time I'm going to use that database, that Jedox database that I just created from the Excel file. Okay, so I don't have any scenario set up at the moment. I'm going to run a new setup again for driver analysis. Similar things, it's going to ask me, it needs to have time, version, and measure. And yep, my data source has already got those. And on the next step, similar type questions. So I need to tell it the kind of the range of time that we're working with. And of course, COVID wasn't really a thing until the beginning of 2020. And let's say we've got useful data up until January of this year. Now, in this case, again, my source data will be the actual values that we brought in from Excel. And the target will be that prediction version that I just created in Modeler. The measures I want to use, in fact, yeah, COVID cases is quite interesting, but like I say, I'm interested in some of our internal measures, such as our different types of marketing spend. So I'm going to use all three of those. And my target, of course, will be sales. And again, I could, for my other dimensions, I could do it for one region or a range of regions or a handful of regions, but I'm just going to leave it all regions for now. And then move on to the next step. And there's really no more choices to make at this stage. There's no more decisions. It's just giving me a preview of some of the source data, but then allowing me to save the scenario. And then again, I can kick it off from the Jedox wizard page for driver analysis. So yeah, so that's taking my data, it's running machine learning algorithms on it, it's working out the relationship between those three measures and my target measure of sales. And again, that should be finished in a few seconds. There we go. So that's actually finished. And what has it done? So again, clicking on the show button, for driver analysis, the type of information that you get looks like this. So it's saying for COVID cases, there looks like there's a fairly strong relationship between COVID cases and sales. And actually over here, you can see that there is, because the COVID cases graph is tracking the sales graph more or less. Yeah, there's a very close relationship between them. In fact, you can't see both colors. My marketing promotions, sort of tracking a bit, but there isn't a clear relationship between them. Hence, there's a lower impact and a less strong relationship. Newspaper advertising, well, there's no relationship at all. So what's that telling me? It's telling me that we're wasting our money on newspaper advertising. We can carry on with marketing promotions, but we could do a lot better. COVID cases, well, hopefully we can't actually control the number of COVID cases, but if we can predict it, then it'll give us a reasonably strong prediction as to what our sales are likely to be. And there could be other metrics and other measures that we use to actually generate that prediction. But that, I think, is the value of Jedox AI, allowing you to create some interesting analysis of your internal data, your potentially external data, create interesting predictions based on that in an integrated environment, where the AI capabilities are all driven by a pre-built model from a marketplace, which includes wizards to allow you to select your data and parameters and generate this type of output. So that's kind of where I'm going to finish. That's the last thing I wanted to show you. I think it's I think we've seen quite a lot of Jedox. Really, the first part of it was all about standard core EPM type functionality, unifying budgeting, planning, forecasting, and reporting. And then the second part was about how we can use the same platform, but do some more interesting things around AI to do predictive forecasting and driver analysis. So I'm going to stop speaking now because I'm losing my voice. And I'm going to, if you have any questions, now's a good time. Otherwise, we can wrap up, I guess.
Yeah. Thanks, Carl. Thank you for that. I think we had a few people who jumped on the call and then moved off mid-session. So
yeah.
Yes. Thank you very much for this. If there are any more questions, because we have one more left in the session. I don't know if he has any more questions. No, I don't think so. So thank you very much for this, and then we can finish.
okay, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks, Carl. Thank you.
Bye-bye.